Hello, and welcome to Adapter Parish, episode 24, The Little Prince. As always, before we get to that, let's talk about our next episode. On Tuesday, the 11th of September, we're again leaving the confines of planet Earth and traveling across the stars. This time with Oprah, like a giant Oprah, and Reese Witherspoon turns into a lettuce dragon. We read Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time and watched both the 2003 TV movie directed by John Kent Harrison and Ava DuVernay's theatrical version from earlier this year, 2018. We look forward to sharing our journey with you. On to your West Wing weekly, bi-weekly thing update. When last we spoke, Chandler Bing had just shown up in the West Wing, and I thought things were going to get a little wackier. They did not. I'm now several episodes into Season 5, and I only have two things to say. First, the bridge between Seasons 4 and 5 is a huge, stressful bummer. I didn't enjoy it. Second, I've now watched 3 Aaron Sorkinless episodes of The West Wing, and I can't say yet whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is noticeably different. We'll see how things go. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. And with that, on with the show. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's The Little Prince. Welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. My name is Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw.
How are you doing today?
Welcome back.
Oh, yeah, it's great to be back.
Yeah, so it's been a while since we recorded, and by the time you hear this, it'll be even further in the future.
Just months from now.
But we actually have not recorded an episode in like a month. So we're a little rusty.
Yeah.
We sat down to record and realized we had not done any of the things we usually do to prepare ourselves to record. So we just did them just now with our headphones on.
We kind of forgot how to do this.
We forgot how to podcast.
And that's assuming we knew how to podcast before.
I mean, that's very tentative.
Whatever we had learned, we had lost.
Yeah.
So this might be a rough episode, but
Yeah.
let's do it.
But your editing skills will
I hope so.
Congeal it into a glistening mass, like an oasis in the desert.
I was going to say, I hope this episode doesn't crash and burn like a plane crash in the desert.
I was more positive. What are we doing today? What are we talking about?
We are talking about The Little Prince.
Say the name of the author.
Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's just call him Mr. Saint.
Huh? Let's just call him Antoine.
Antoine. Okay, we can call him that.
Yeah. So Antoine wrote this book. Antoine, our friend.
Yes.
So this is something that I'm actually really excited to do this episode because it's going to be a little different than the ones we've done before in terms of the variety of adaptations that we're going to talk about.
Because they're varied.
Very varied.
They're
very
very
varied.
Very varied.
So we read the book, which is I'm going to call it a children's book.
It's under 100 pages, and that's with illustrations.
Right. It's one of those books that is quote unquote a children's book, but many people of many different ages, many children of many different ages love it.
Yes.
It's one of those kind of books, but it is very short. So there are 3 adaptations that we're talking about today. We're not going to talk about them in chronological order. We're going to talk about them in order of kind of length.
Yeah.
Of how they interpret the story. So we're going to talk about 3 different versions of it. The first one is a short, because you take a short book and you turn it into a short film.
Yes. And in 1979, they did just that. Mm-hmm. And you can see it on YouTube.
But earlier in 1974, they made a feature-length movie of it, which is kind of another way to handle having a really short book.
Turn it into a musical.
Just basically take the story and just vamp. Just try to stretch it out as much as you can.
Jeremy's doing the stretching more time gesture.
Yeah,
stall for time gesture.
Pulling my hands apart. Stop. More time. We're not ready yet. That's another way to do it. We'll talk about that as well. And then finally, we're going to talk about the 2015 animated movie that changes everything.
They use the original story as a base to make a longer film.
Exactly. That in a lot of ways bears no resemblance to the book.
Right. But in many ways, there's quite a resemblance to the book. We're going to talk about it.
We're going to get into it. But let's start with the book.
Okay.
So did you have any relationship with this book before we did it for the show?
Yes, I had to read it because I took AP French.
Okay.
So I read it in English and French in high school.
So your introduction to this beautiful book was being required to read it.
Correct.
Which is not, I would say that's not ideal.
Well, my French teacher really liked it. So the 2 books that I remember having to read in their entirety in French were, because I took AP French language and AP French literature, were The Little Prince and Candide.
Oh, we had to read Candide as well. Yeah.
Both of which are very short. I think I enjoyed Candide better because there's a scene in Candide where the only thing I remember about Candide is the best of all possible worlds. That's like the theme of Candide.
Yep.
And also there's a scene where monkeys are biting people's butts.
I don't remember the scene where monkeys are biting people's butts.
I'll find it for you.
Because I remember The Little Prince more, but I do remember that we read Candide.
That's how I learned the word le cuisse.
I may have done, which is?
But.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Cool. It's not derriere?
No.
Okay. Everything I know is a lie. I don't remember much of Candide. I think it was because I think I was a fine French student. I wasn't a great French student.
Oh, I was a terrible French student. Like, let's not get it twisted.
I wasn't terrible. I'm very proud of the fact that I wasn't terrible, but I was fine. And I think, I definitely faked my way through a good portion of those 5 years. And Candide was one of those portions.
Yeah, I mean, of all the AP tests I took, I took language and literature, French, and those were the only two that I could not use for college credit because I only got 3s on both of them.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
I'm really bad at French.
Just sweet trade, is it? Like?
Great.
That's all I remember.
We just got back from France.
Oh, yes, we did.
Mais oui.
Mais oui. I am not even going to say anything in French. I'm just going to say it with a French accent.
That's offensive.
Is it?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, don't mock people's accents.
Getting back to a million years ago when I read this book in high school. So when we had to read this, I was super excited because I grew up on this book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was a book, like, you are currently holding my childhood copy of The Little Prince. And so it was really easy for me to cheat because we had to read it in French. And I guess the assumption was we wouldn't have direct access to an English language copy of it, but I just had mine at home.
Oh, yeah. No, that's how I cheated on Candide because we were reading it in French, in French, but I was also reading it in AP Modern European History in English.
Oh, we're both terrible people.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm glad we found each other.
It's great.
But I love this book. I grew up on this book, and I remember every part of it. It's in my head. I remember watching the animated version when I was a kid. I never saw the musical when I was a kid, but I remember watching the animated
It's probably
version.
for the best.
Oh, well, I mean, there's no reason to jump into that right now. But I love the book.
Yes.
I really, really love it. And so what is before I kind of talk about my response to it, what do you think?
Of The Little Prince?
Yeah, what'd you think of the book?
It's not my thing.
I didn't think so.
It's not my cup of tea. It's got a very, like, chill Mr. Rogers vibe to it, which I suppose is what you responded to. It's very
it's very poetic.
It's very poetic. It's pretty slow paced. It's pretty gentle. It's like very allegorical.
It's like waves lapping on the shore.
I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. I need something a little bit more intense, I guess.
Now, worldwide, this book is huge.
Yes.
Like, there's hundreds of millions of copies printed. It's like the national book of France.
It is literally the national book of France.
It's crazy. Did you come out of the experience of reading it not really understanding what the appeal is?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry.
What do you think the appeal is?
I guess it's sort of like people read it and they hearken back to a simpler time and they kind of like think about what it was like to see the world through the eyes of a child, an eternally optimistic child, and it's about the power of love.
Okay.
I find all those things a little boring.
I don't think you're wrong. I think there's a lot of that in why people love it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't know for certain why everyone in the world who loves this book loves it.
Well, what's your theory?
My theory is that it's one of those stories that's kind of a Rorschach test.
Yeah.
Like, it is clearly metaphor, but it's constructed in a way where you don't know exactly what he's being metaphorical about. So you get to project whatever you want onto it.
I suppose that's very French in a way.
Yeah. I don't think so. Like, you know what? We should probably take a break for a second and read the back of this book.
All right, I have it right here.
For those people who don't know what this story is about, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank
you.
Just the first line is talking about how beloved it is, which kind of like proves the point that we were just trying to make. All right. No story is more beloved by children and grown-ups alike than this wise, enchanting fable. One day, the author reminisces, when his plane was forced down in the Sahara 1,000 miles from help, he encountered a most extraordinary small person. "If you please," said the stranger, "draw me a sheep." And thus begins the remarkable history of the Little Prince. The Little Prince lived alone on a tiny planet no larger than a house. He owned 3 volcanoes, 2 active and 1 extinct. He also owned a flower, unlike any flower in all the galaxy, of great beauty and of inordinate pride. It was this pride that ruined the serenity of the Little Prince's world and started him on the interplanetary travels that brought him to Earth, where he learned finally, from a fox, the secret of what is really important in life. There are a few stories that in some way, in some degree, change the world forever for their readers. This is one.
Okay, did everybody catch that deeply cynical laugh that happened just a few seconds ago? I get that this is not a book for you.
I mean, if you were really cynical, you could say that the moral of the story is if someone is abusive towards you, you should not leave them, but you should continually go back and shower them with love until they can't help but love you back.
I don't want that. I don't want this conversation to turn into that.
Great.
But bottom line, that's what the story's about. And I love this story because there's like elements of science fiction in it. It is a fantasy story, but it's one of those things where the stuff that I love, I'm sure is not stuff that everybody loves about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are things that other people love that I don't, because it is this blank slate of a book.
Yeah.
And anyone can look at it and say, oh, the fox is this, because that's what the fox is for them. Or
Yeah.
the rose is this, because that's what the rose is for them.
Well, there's a lot of Christian imagery, like the snake and the rose and the flower and the this and the that you could, if you had that worldview, read into it, that I don't know that much about the author, but I don't believe that was his intention. But like, I'm just, there's a lot. That's sort of the opposite, like the polar opposite read of what I just said. So I guess it just depends where your head is at.
Can I talk about his intention a little bit?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Yes.
This book was published in 1943, not a year before he died. But he was I love the way he's described, and I feel like this is only the way someone from 100 years ago could be described. He was a writer, poet, aristocrat, and journalist, and aviator.
The world was a lot smaller then,
You could do a lot more
you could
stuff.
specialize in a lot more stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like we don't have Renaissance people like that.
No, not really.
Yeah. So he was a writer. He was very, very famous within his home country of France. He was a pilot. He flew for the French Air Force. And then during the armistice in 1940 with Germany, he left. So he became an expatriate during World War II, and he went to North America. So he actually wrote The Little Prince while he was in North America. And he had written many other things. 2 of his big books were Wind, Sand, and Stars and Night Flight. All kind of very similar imagery throughout all of them.
Aviation themed.
He liked writing about planes. He liked writing what he knew.
I mean, I will say the one thing that I do know about him, well, I know 2 things about him, one of
Yep.
which I'm going to get to later, but one of the things I know about him is he was the the part where the aviator crashes in the Sahara is he had experience with that.
That happened to him.
That happened.
Do you know where he was flying?
No.
Saigon.
Oh.
He was trying to fly from Europe to Saigon as fast as he could.
Oh, good job.
With him and a co-pilot.
And they crashed.
They had some wine. They had an orange. These are things I learned.
And they had like 3 cigarettes or something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
They literally had like enough water for a day. 3 days later, when they weren't even sweating anymore because there was no more water in their bodies,
Ugh.
they were rescued by a Bedouin.
Oh, good.
So that's good. But clearly, that's one of the only things in this book where I feel like people can say, he put this in the book because of this thing in his personal life.
Yeah. Like how many people experience a plane crash in the desert and live to tell the tale?
And then put it in a children's book.
Yeah, why not? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you?
So that's the stuff I know about his life. Maybe there's more we'll talk about later. But just the basic idea of the book, the basic structure of it is pilot crashes in the desert, meets a little boy who says, please draw me a sheep.
Who comes from nowhere.
He comes from an asteroid.
Right, but he just appears in the middle of the desert is what I'm saying.
And what he finds out is that he is from an asteroid.
Yes.
And the little prince had left his asteroid and had visited other asteroids on the way to Earth, and then had come to Earth, and now they're hanging out. And then, at the end of the book, the little prince dies.
He commits suicide by snake.
Kind of. Well, I mean, he's not dead, because the only way he can get back home, his body won't make it to home, to his asteroid, so he is going to leave his body, because it's just a shell.
Yep.
That's the story.
Okay.
So it's a little French.
It's a a little on the nose.
It's a little hard to hold on to. I imagine trying to talk about the story of this book is a little like trying to hold on to uncooked eggs.
Yeah.
It's like there's no way to do that.
He met a snake and then he died.
Yeah, well, no, he met the snake and then a bunch of things happened. Then he met a fox and then he died.
Oh, God.
And then he met an aviator. So it's all this stuff. Talking about the story is not important. Like, I feel like that's ironically...
But that's not important right now.
Ironically, for a show about adaptation, the story is the least important thing about this book. I think it's individual lines. I think it's imagery in the book. I think that's the stuff that people really respond to. I think that's the stuff that makes the book really special.
Yes.
But there are some other things that I found out about what people have interpreted his intention to be. Like I said, the only thing I'm comfortable saying is the aviator crashes in the desert because Antoine crashed in a desert.
Did. A big desert.
Everything else, I'm, for whatever reason, not super willing to just accept that that's what's going on. So here's a few things. Do you know who the Rose is?
A lady?
The Rose is his wife.
I mean, obviously.
Consuelo.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
It's not a very flattering portrayal.
That's what people say. And they take this to be all about their relationship because the little prince and the Rose love each other.
Except they can't live together.
Yeah, because the Rose is vain.
So demanding.
So demanding.
She just wants to be warm.
Yeah, but then as soon as he leaves, she realizes that she loves him.
Yeah.
And he realizes that he loves her.
Uh-huh.
But people say that the Rose is his wife.
Uh-huh.
Is this worth us getting into an hour-long conversation about?
No.
I don't think so, because we don't know. But I know what the Rose makes me think of in my life.
What's that?
No. That's
I see. I understand.
What I'm saying is every part of the book makes me think of something.
Got it.
And so the Rose is the Rose for me, but that is different for you or different for other people.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The baobabs. So the little prince is afraid that baobabs, the big African trees, they're going to take over his small planet. And so he has to pull them up at the root whenever they sprout. The baobabs, apparently, are the Nazis.
Oh.
Taking over Europe.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah.
Does it help?
Guess.
Does it help your emotional reading of the book?
No.
That's the thing. I think that's fine to know, but I actually don't think that says much about why this book is so popular.
Yeah.
The fox apparently. Now, I wasn't clear about this. The fox is one of Antoine's lovers.
Oh.
But
okay.
I don't think a mistress. I think just a lover.
What's the difference between a mistress and a lover?
Well, lovers from before a relationship, and then a mistress is someone you cheat on your spouse with.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm wondering, I don't know if it was a past relationship or...
God knows.
Because anytime it came up, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I'm like a terrible researcher because I was given information and I was like, no, I don't care. And I pushed it aside.
Well.
Because it doesn't matter. So those are some things I found out, but I don't think it's worth talking about because I think the book is one of the best books I've ever read that allows anyone reading it to project whatever they want onto it. And the book, I think, not just allows for that, I think it embraces that. I think it's very excited about that.
And I suppose I would say that if you're someone that does not respond to that type of ambiguity, this may not be your favorite book.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're the type of person who's very emotional and loves this kind of stuff, this may be the book for you.
Maybe so.
Maybe so. How many times did I cry when we were watching all this stuff?
I lost count.
No, I only cried.
No,
I cried once while I was reading the book, but I've read it many, many times, and I cried a whole bunch during one of the versions.
Yes. I didn't cry at all.
Yeah.
It did not move me. My heart was not touched.
That doesn't surprise me. I think it's one of those things that, like, because... No, I love who you are. I think it's one of those things where, because I grew up on the book, like, the imagery just does it for me. And I think that's what it is for a lot of people.
That's fair.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to say about the book, or do you want to jump into these adaptations?
Let's get into it.
Okay. So, we go to 1979. Now...
We're doing these, just as a reminder, we're doing these out of chronological order.
Yes, we are. Now, I think it's important, as we're talking about our first adaptation, to do our first segment right now.
Okay.
Of Sir not appearing in this film.
Great.
I want to get this out of the way. It doesn't really happen. This isn't really a valid segment for this episode. I will say, like, as he's going from asteroid to asteroid, he's meeting these interesting characters for, like, a page.
Yeah.
There's the businessman and the lamplighter and the
king.
drunkard. Yeah, the king and the drunkard who drinks because he is depressed, and he's depressed because he's drunk, and he's drunk because he drinks.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Not all of these characters appear in every single version, but like
none of them are that important
the prince
in and of themselves.
Yeah,
the whole point is that he's encountering the world of men, quote unquote.
The world of grown-ups.
Well, right, but he keeps talking about men.
But when it comes to the main characters, like the Prince, the Aviator, the Snake, the Fox, the Rose, they're in every single version.
Yes.
So Sir not appearing in this film, I want to acknowledge it, but I want to push it aside for now.
Well, I have an honorary candidate for Sir not appearing in this film.
Do you?
Yes. So I mentioned before that I know two things about Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. One was that he crashed his plane in the desert one time and had to be rescued.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is that he is a missing person.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened to him. He disappeared.
I mean, we
think he probably died in a plane crash in World War II.
Because he disappeared while he was flying a plane over the Mediterranean.
Yes, but
I don't think it's that much of a mystery.
But he was never recovered, and they do not know where he crashed or when.
Yeah,
so,
in the Mediterranean.
Well, I'm just saying he could have been living on an island somewhere, though these many years. We do not know.
All right.
It's possible.
I mean, it's possible.
If you go to Wikipedia and you type in like persons who mysteriously disappeared, he's on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows what happened to him. Much like Amelia Earhart is still a mystery, even though we know probably what happened. She was flying a plane and they don't know where the plane went.
Yeah.
He was flying a plane. They don't know where he went. He was too old to be in the Air Force, but he went back anyway and re-enlisted to fight the Nazis.
Yeah,
he's a very noble person, actually.
Free French Air Force in North Africa.
Yeah.
Because this was during World War II. It couldn't be the French Air Force.
No, because they were under Vichy.
Exactly.
Like in Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's a missing person. So I'm going to nominate him for Sir not appearing in this film.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'd rather have him be our Sir not appearing in this film than like the one time the lamplighter didn't show up in one of the adaptations we watched.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I just love an unsolved mystery.
So, as I said at the very beginning, there's like 3 different ways that you make an adaptation of something this short.
Mm-hmm.
One is just do it.
Make a short adaptation.
Just do everything that's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really add anything.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really stretch everything out. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1979, that's what they did.
Yes.
So did you know who Will Vinton is? Did you know who he was before we did this?
I had not heard the name.
So Will Vinton is one of these guys. I'm just going to give a list of things that he is responsible for.
Cool.
The California Raisins. The Adventures of Mark Twain. There was that like claymation, really anything claymation.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever heard the term claymation, you've heard it because of Will Vinton. So there was a movie called The Adventures of Mark Twain. He worked on the Moonwalker movie. He did like
I don't even know what that is.
Michael Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what Smooth Criminal comes from,
Eh?
I think. Yeah. He did work on Return to Oz,
Mm-hmm.
which...
Oh, that scared the fuck out of me as a child.
Well, The Little Prince scared the fuck out of me as a child.
Well,
all his claymation stuff. This stuff is like so deeply unsettling for me. I like Will Vinton, but his stuff scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I don't like him, even though he's great. But the one that scared me the most was a Rip Van Winkle short that he did.
Oh, no.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, you showed me like a picture from it or something.
Yeah. It didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah.
Yes. So he made this claymation, which if you have like any memory of like watching a claymation version of The Little Prince like in school, like this is probably it. You can find it on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, 27 minutes long.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
It's deeply unsettling.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it tells the story from beginning to end. It's almost just like an animated illustration of the book. It just kind of goes through the book with a narrator kind of reading the book in the background and has this sort of semi-disturbing claymation stuff happening.
Yeah, I would say like the most disturbing things for me is that like the characters' mouths don't move when they're talking. Like they stand there, and I'm obviously miming this because everyone can see me right now, but they stand there having a conversation and their heads move back and forth while they are talking, but their mouths are not moving.
But then also then if they like have to move their arm, like they show the entire movement of the arm like a rainbow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like the characters aren't just like these like distinct physical characters. They kind of exist in the air around them and in the landscape around them, and they're constantly like morphing into it. And
I mean, I will say the one thing that I feel like claymation really worked for is like when the baobabs grow out. That was the shot that I definitely remember from as a child, when the baobabs like sprout and grow big out of the sides of the little planet, and you can just kind of see them growing from a seed to a giant tree. I feel like claymation is a really good medium to kind of do that, because it reminds you of like those like science videos that like the sped up like a tree growing or a plant growing, and so the way that the stop motion works, it looks like we think of trees growing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think you're completely right. I think that I actually hadn't thought about this before, but I feel like I don't think the whole thing works 100%, but I feel like parts of it really work.
Yeah.
And I think that the book itself is this book that, forgive me because I'm like thinking of this for the first time, but the book for me is like half of it are these very beautiful moments that have a really strong visual component to them. But then the other half are these really, really deep, simple conversations that the aviator is having with the little prince.
Yeah.
And visually, there's not much happening. They're just two characters talking to each other. I think that this short is able to do the beautiful moments, but I don't think it's able to do the conversations.
Yeah.
I don't think it works. And I love the sound design. I actually really like the voice actors in it. The guy who plays the aviator, this may not mean anything to you. Do you know who Cliff Robertson is?
No.
He's Uncle Ben in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies.
Okay.
And he's the aviator. He's got a great voice. He's really, really good. And the little prince in the grand tradition of animated voices
is a lady
named Michelle Mariana. She's very good. I think the sound design is amazing. Like, I would listen to it, but I don't really want to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like being an adaptation, as I said, like I don't think that they had a concept. As far as being an adaptation goes, I don't think they started with The Little Prince and somebody said, I really love The Little Prince and I want to make an animated short of this. I think they said, okay, well, we have this thing that we do.
Yeah.
We did these California raisins.
Well, that was later.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. But we have this thing that we do. Like, what would be a good, a good story that we could try out this technology that we have? And someone was like, oh, I don't know, The Little Prince. And they were like, great, cool. So it was more about the technique of the claymation and the stop motion than it was about the story.
Yeah. And I think it's okay for that to be.
Yeah.
I think it's good. And the reason I think it's good and successful is because it's short.
Yeah. It's very short.
If I had to watch an hour and a half of it, it wouldn't work for me.
It would be too much.
But I actually think you can have something really short that is based mostly on kind of technical prowess.
Sure. I mean, that's what all the Pixar animated shorts are. Like any Pixar animated short is we learned how to do this, so we built a short around it.
But they also have really good stories.
No, they do, but I'm saying like that's what it kind of came. That's what the tradition of doing those shorts came out of.
You're right. Yeah, no, totally.
We learned how to
important.
animate this.
Yeah.
So we we wrote a story around this thing that we now know how to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So before we move on, because I think there's not a lot to talk about with this. It's worth watching because it's short.
Yeah. And you'll remember it. Like I guarantee you saw this in elementary school.
Yeah. I would like to talk about just one more thing with the animated short. I want to talk about the rose.
Okay.
I want to talk about how the rose is portrayed.
Yeah.
Because, again, this goes back to one of the things I like in the book is the rose is definitely female.
Yes.
But
correct.
It is a rose.
Yes.
And I think anyone can kind of project whatever they want on it.
I mean, sure.
But in this particular version and in the other ones, the rose is a woman.
Well, I feel like there seems to be this grand tradition of like, okay, female character, we need to make it sexy. How can we make it sexy when its counterpart is a child? And so in this case, what they did was they did this sort of weird like dream ballet where the little prince grows up and he's an adult and he's dancing with the rose who is an adult lady, which I'm actually like, let me put it this way. It's less disturbing than at least one of the other versions we're going to talk about. So I guess my feeling is sometimes a rose is just a rose.
Yeah.
A rose does not have to be a sexy, voluptuous lady, especially like a child can love a rose and be pure of heart and not have it be sexy. And I feel like the adaptation that perhaps we are about to talk about maybe didn't quite respect that line where you shouldn't put a child in real sexy situations. Anyway, I'm actually okay with how they did it in this one because it was just a rose unless it was like a dream sequence, in which case it was an adult sexy lady, but the counterpart to the adult sexy lady was an adult man, which makes it okay. I guess.
Yeah, it's I wish they hadn't done it. Like I don't think it's necessary, but yes, it is the least problematic. of the ways that you portray the Rose as a woman.
Yeah.
Because they are in love. They love each other.
They love each other.
They love each. It's not. Yeah, I would say that.
I don't
they're
think
not
it's
in
sexual.
love.
Yeah.
They love each other.
Yeah.
But he's a little boy.
Yeah.
And this is often portrayed as a grown woman.
Yeah.
And voiced by a grown woman.
Yeah.
Let's just get into it.
Okay.
This is the meat and potatoes of this episode.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to spoil this for everyone. When we're done talking about the musical, we're going to talk about one that I like a lot.
Yeah. Thus, we will probably have less to say.
Yeah. This one, though, my goodness.
Oh, my God.
So in 1974, they made a musical.
Wait, let's talk about who they are.
Oh, before we do that, can I just read one thing?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to read this from the Wikipedia page of the 1974 The Little Prince. The film and its music were unsuccessful at the box office and became somewhat popular after its theatrical run and has been released for sale on various media.
That's it.
That's the best you can say.
That's the legacy of this musical written by Lerner and fucking Lowe.
So I have a list. The pedigree of the people who made this movie is high.
Yeah, I know.
So let's talk about Lerner and Lowe.
Okay.
I have a list of things that they've done together.
Now, let me ask you this before you get into your list.
Sure.
When you're reading off your list, is it in chronological
No.
order? Because I would be interested to know where this falls chronologically in the list of their accomplishments.
I know exactly where this falls chronologically.
Last?
The end.
Okay.
This is the last musical they ever did together.
Much like Gilbert and Sullivan, like I feel like the last collaboration of collaborators is often the poorest.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, go ahead.
Okay, they did Brigadoon.
Mm-hmm.
They did Paint Your Wagon. They did Camelot. They did Gigi. And they did My Fair Lady.
They did all of those.
They're Lerner and fucking Lowe.
Yeah, the music, if you have heard My Fair Lady, it has a similar ring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can I talk about the director?
Yeah.
It was directed by Stanley Donen. He directed a few films that you may have heard of. Singin' in the Rain, On the Town, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers,
Jesus.
Funny Face, Damn Yankees. Like, they made a musical.
Yes.
They made a big damn musical out of this.
Yes.
And they got a big damn musical director and a couple of big damn musical writers.
And a big damn musical leading man. They spared no expense.
They spared no expense. They got Richard Kiley.
Richard Kiley.
The voice you're now hearing is Richard Kiley. We spared no expense.
If you look to the right, you will see a herd of the first dinosaurs on our tour, called Dilophosaurus.
It's so good.
Oh my God. They got Richard Kiley.
Yeah.
So let's go through this cast a little bit.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about everybody. I'd like to get into it a little bit.
Okay.
So Richard Kiley is the aviator.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you think?
I mean, he's got a fine, strong voice.
He's great.
He sings that song. Wow. He threw himself into it. He emoted. Wow. He emoted all over that screen.
Yep. He is the man of La Mancha himself.
He is Don Quixote, the Lord of La Mancha.
Yeah. He's fine. He's fine.
He's doing his best.
I only think one actor in this movie is bad.
Yeah.
And we'll get to him in a minute.
Yeah, I have a thought about who that would be.
Yeah, quote unquote. We'll get to him in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone's bad. I think the material fails them.
Yes.
Often.
Yes.
So Richard Kiley is the aviator. Little cute boy named Stephen Warner plays the Little Prince.
He's actually he's very good.
Very good.
Like he seemed. I mean, he couldn't have been more than 6.
Oh God, yeah, maybe 2 years
2?
old.
No, he's older than 2.
2.5.
No, he's probably 6 or 7. And I mean, I will say he kind of had to carry a lot of the movie, and he certainly seemed to understand what he was saying, which is all you can really expect from a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless he was like an 11-year-old that just looked really young, but I think he couldn't have been more than 7.
He's a very tiny child.
He's so small
and very good.
Yes. We're not gonna get into making fun of children on this episode. There's so much to make fun of.
Nothing bad to say about this kid.
Yeah.
Now, there are a number of characters that they meet on different planets, different asteroids, like the King, who is Joss Ackland, and the General, Graham Crowden, and the Historian, who they added, who's not in the book, Victor Spinetti.
I like him.
Who I love.
He's wearing the same cardigan from A Hard Day's Night.
His wife probably knitted it. And there's the businessman.
He won an award. It's on the wall in his office.
Yeah, likely story. There's the businessman, played by Clyde Revel, or Reville. I'm not sure. Bottom line, like, these are all people I've recognized from other things. Almost everyone here has been in something that I love.
Yeah.
They're all fine.
Yeah.
They're all very good.
I mean, they're all on screen for about 90 seconds.
Yeah. Then we get into, like, the big characters. Now, there's the Rose, the Snake, and the Fox.
Yes.
Now, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are the Rose, the Snake, and the Fox people?
No.
What are they?
They're one is a plant and two are animals.
Okay.
But I suppose you could also say they're metaphors.
I was expecting you to say a rose, a snake, and a fox.
Yeah.
They choose to cast them
Yeah.
and portray them in this movie in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
They seem to be very uncomfortable with the idea that the audience wouldn't be seeing people on screen.
Yeah, they or perhaps didn't possess the technology or the budget to make them anything other than people.
I thought they spared no expense. They got Richard Kiley.
They blew the budget on Richard Kiley.
I guess
and
so.
the plane that goes upside down while he's singing.
Wait, is that why the park failed? Because they blew their entire budget on Richard Kiley?
Oh my god. You've just unlocked a new theory.
Oh my goodness. So let's talk about the Rose first.
Okay.
The Rose is portrayed...
I'm not happy about this.
The Rose is portrayed by an actress named Donna McKechnie.
Oh, she's very sexy.
That is the biggest word that I would use to describe her.
What, sexy?
It's sexy.
Yeah.
We already talked about this. The Little Prince is a tiny child.
This is the first but not the last time in this movie that there is a deeply sexual situation happening that involves this very small boy and another human being.
Yep. An adult human being.
An adult human being.
Mm-hmm.
I will say it is not the last time.
Nope.
So basically what they do is they take a rose, an actual flower, whatever genus a rose may be, and they onto that.
Our angriest emails are going to be about the fact that you don't know what genus a rose belongs to.
God, if that's the angriest email we get, can you even imagine? Like that would be fantastic.
I just like getting email.
Yeah.
adapterparishcast@gmail.com.
Great.
A rose is a rose is a rose.
They have projected upon that the image of a lady wearing not very many clothes.
She wasn't?
No.
No? Few clothes?
Her boobs were out.
Oh, no.
Just out.
Also her legs.
And her legs.
Oh, very long legs.
Yeah, just gyrating in a sexual manner and talking, being very coy and demanding with a child and demanding things from him and being very like pouty, like, oh, you're gonna leave me. It was disturbing.
Yeah.
It was deeply disturbing. And I know that the 70s were a simpler time and everybody was on cocaine, but I don't understand how not one person looked at this and went, this is not okay. Like this, you're literally portraying a romantic relationship between a child and a sexy woman.
Have you ever seen any of the Star Wars Holiday Special?
No, I've heard of it. I've heard tell.
Okay, because it was like 4 years later.
Okay.
But there's a scene in it. I feel like this was a 70s thing.
What, the people were on cocaine?
No, just sexual, like having a tiny woman in front of you that's very sexy.
Oh, God.
There's just a scene in it that is like, it's exactly the same thing where I can't remember which member of Chewbacca's family is watching a hologram.
Oh, isn't it the grandpa?
It's the grandfather. I think
he's
Lumpy.
he's watching porn. Like, I've heard of this before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's almost identical to the Rose scene.
Oh my God.
So if anyone hasn't seen The Little Prince, but they have seen that scene of the Star Wars Holiday Special, it's the same thing. Oh, hi everyone. Jeremy here. I'm recording probably what is going to be my favorite drop-in that I've ever had to record. So I got this part wrong. I was conflating two different things from the Star Wars Holiday Special. So in one scene, Chewbacca's son Lumpy watches a hologram of like circus performers. So I had that in my head. Then later in the movie, Chewbacca's father Itchy, he has like a VR helmet on his head that shows him a super sexy Diane Carroll basically doing like a porn and singing, and I kind of conflated those two things together. So I'm very sorry, and I should know that better than I did. And back to the show. It's really fucked up.
It's so fucked up. So this might be a good time to get into the female characters a little underwritten.
I mean, before you dropped a comment that the female characters there are none in all of this.
Well, except the Rose.
Except for the Rose.
Right.
I don't really have anything to say because I don't disagree. Please continue. I thought I had a big point to make.
Did I just glare at you and you forgot everything you ever knew?
No, clearly not.
No, I mean, I guess I would say that the way that the book is written, it's clearly sort of metaphorical for you love someone, but you're not good together, and you can't stay together, but you can't stay apart. Like, there's that sort of element to it in the book. But in the book, when the Little Prince is talking about his Rose, who's so special and so unique in all the world, he's clearly talking about a rose, like an actual flower. Like the rose has a consciousness. It's a sentient rose, and it can speak and talk, and it's vain, and it is demanding of all these things from him, and is making his life kind of miserable. But it's not, to me, nobody's saying this is what women are like. It's a rose. Like, the reason that it's vain is because it's literally a flower. Like, that's all that it has. And there's a lot of talk about, like, it only has 3 thorns to protect itself, or 4 thorns to protect itself, and they actually can't do anything to protect it from being eaten by sheep. And so it has to sort of put on this big show because it has no defenses. It's very, very weak. But it's literally a rose. Like, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about a flower, a rose. And it seems to me that nobody, with the exception maybe of the 2015 version, which we'll talk about, but like, nobody was content to just say a rose is a rose is a rose, in the words of Gertrude Stein. You like how I dropped that in there?
I dropped it a minute ago.
Did you?
I literally said that.
Clearly I wasn't listening.
Nope.
Fantastic. Well, you
just
didn't,
like a woman. Welcome to the last episode of Adapt Your Parish.
And also the last day of our marriage.
A podcast that was about adaptation. We hope you can adapt to not having this show anymore. Please continue.
Thank you. Gertrude Stein would not be happy with what you just said. So no one was content to just let a rose be a rose. They're like, oh, well, they refer to the rose with female pronouns, and therefore it is a lady. So let's put all the characteristics of what women are on this rose and make it sexy. And it's just disturbing. It's really disturbing. It's unpleasant to watch. It was uncomfortable.
The amount of sexiness that is happening in front of this child, and also the amount of unsexy sexiness that's happening in front of this child in this movie is unacceptable.
Yes, it's not cool. It's not good. It's not cool. And
based on the fact that, quote, the film and its music were unsuccessful at the box office and became somewhat popular after its theatrical run and has been released for sale on various media. Based on that, it seems that it was unacceptable to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So yeah, it was unpleasant. And I mean, just sort of my usual complaint, which is that he goes around encountering all of these people who are meant to represent different aspects of humankind, and how grown-ups are not logical and do things that don't make sense. But of course they're all men, because the default person is a man. No one is a woman, because there's no reason for anybody to be a woman other than the Rose, who is a love interest. Right? So it's just your very, very basic, there are no women in it because there didn't need to be, because nobody at any point thought that there was anything wrong with just a default human being in every situation being male.
Yeah. I think it's one of those pieces of work that is, like, I'm talking about the original story. It's one of those things that where I have the space in my head to both criticize it as a product of its time, but also recognize the timelessness of it.
Yeah.
And what it has to offer.
Well,
but not saying that every criticism of it is invalid.
Yeah,
Super valid.
I'm actually not even necessarily criticizing the original text. Like, yeah, sure, but this was from the 30s, right? Or the 40s?
The 40s.
But in the 70s, when they made this new musical, they added a new character.
Yeah.
Who wasn't even in the book. But that was also a man. Like, if they were adding people and changing things around, like it would be one thing if they were like, oh no, we must stick, very strictly to the text. But they weren't even doing that. So like, but everybody's still a man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I know that you do.
Yeah. I do want to, before we get to the most problematic part of this movie, I want to talk about someone who has shown up on this show before.
Multiple times.
This is his third appearance on Adapter Parish.
Sir Gene Wilder.
National treasure Gene Wilder, whom I love.
And his hair.
He's wonderful in so many things. He's fine in this. He plays the fox.
Let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
He commits to it 100%.
Yeah.
Like, if you want a masterclass on a human being trying to portray a timid animal, you could watch this scene.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really important because he's establishing this really intimate relationship with a tiny child. But if you don't believe that he's a fox, he's just a middle-aged dude
in a forest.
In a forest with a tiny child alone.
Trying to get closer. Like, they sing a song called Closer and Closer, right?
Closer and closer and closer.
Order to pull this off.
I don't think it works.
No, it doesn't work.
I don't think it doesn't work. I think it only doesn't work. My words are great. Because Gene Wilder is so good.
Right.
And I this is going to sound so fucked up. He really makes you believe that he has he's not going to do anything bad to this little kid. That's the only thing that
it's
makes
a low
it
bar.
kind of okay.
It's a low bar, but I think he hits it.
It's the most fucked up thing I've ever said on this show. But he's fine, and he's one of the parts I always remembered from it. And I think the song he sings is the best song in the movie. He's, I think, the best performance in the movie. He actually, I think, is able to bridge the gap between the big, like, Lerner and Lowe Broadway stuff and also the really intimate Antoine de Saint-Exupéry stuff.
Yeah.
And those lines. I think he sells those lines from the book better than anybody else in the movie.
Well, the fox has the line.
Yeah.
Like, the line that all of these versions really focus on because it's the famous line and the moral of the story, which is, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye."
That's it.
That's it. And the fox gets that line. And it's the fox.
He's very, very good. And does the best he can with the material given.
He does the best he can. Bless his heart. He tries.
And I would say, I can't say that the whole thing is worth watching, but I think his scene is worth watching. I think it's definitely worth watching.
I also like his like tweed suit that he's wearing.
Oh, yes. It definitely was a costume designer doing their best to say, like they clearly got the direction, oh, he's a fox. And they're like, okay, cool. So I'll do like a fox. No. What? I don't. So like a unitard? No, a suit. He's going to be wearing a suit.
Dress him like a person, but he's a fox.
Okay. So like I can make the color kind of look like a fox.
Kind of orange and like a little fuzzy.
That's it. Do it. Go. You got it.
Did he have a tail? I think he had like a little tail.
Nope.
Okay.
Just a jacket. And a human butt.
Because the next person we're about to talk about did have a slight animal appendage.
This is one of the fucking craziest things that we're done with Gene Wilder. This is one of the fucking craziest things that I've ever seen in certainly anything we've watched for this show.
Yeah.
Is this the worst thing we've seen?
It's certainly, if you rank pedophilia
Oh,
as
God.
like the worst thing, which I think it is, then yes, this is the worst thing that we've seen.
But you're only looking at it from that lens. I mean from every lens. I don't think we've ever seen anything for this show that is as bad in as many qualitative and quantifiable ways.
Yes.
It is just awful.
Well, okay, we have to say what we're talking about.
So I'm going to say the character.
Okay.
This is the character of the snake.
Yes. What actor portrayed this character?
Bob Fosse.
Fosse.
Fosse does the snake.
Not Martha Graham.
No, that would have been great.
God, you know who would have been great? Robin Williams.
No, what?
He wouldn't have been so sexy.
Yeah, but I don't. No, the problem isn't casting. That's only casting is only part of the problem with this.
There's a taste issue here.
So, the little prince is walking through the desert, and he comes upon a tree, and on the tree is a giant snake.
And in that shot, it's a snake.
It's a snake. Yeah, it's a snake. And then suddenly,
it's Bob Fosse.
It's Bob Fosse.
In his hat.
In his hat because he's bald.
And his spats.
Sunglasses and spats and a little waistcoat and like it. He's Bob Fosse.
Yeah.
And he does a song. And in a minute, I do want to go through all the songs just like super quick.
Yeah.
But
there's songs that we have not talked about that we need to discuss.
That's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And he proceeds to do a song where the point of the song is to kind of warn the little prince against being near him.
Because he's a snake.
But you just have Bob Fosse strutting around the desert like...
doing his thing, like doing his dance moves.
It's like you said to Bob Fosse, choreograph a dance. Oh, and by the way, the theme is snakes, go.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what they did.
Yeah.
Like, it's a Bob Fosse dance. There's a lot of hip thrusting.
Would you... I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say too much hip thrusting.
Far too much. In the face of the child.
Directly in the face of a tiny child. It's fucking crazy. And he's bad.
Yeah.
Is this going to anger people? Not people who listen to this show, but are there people in the world who would be angered by me saying that Bob Fosse is actually not a great actor?
I don't really know how people feel about Bob Fosse. Here's what I would say. This is what I said to you when we were watching this. Well, I said two things. One was that they filmed this in Tunisia, and Gene Wilder and Bob Fosse both have amazing tans, and I was just picturing them like both hanging out by the pool at the hotel together, because I'm sure neither of them shot more than like 2 days
2
on
or
this.
3 days or something. Yeah.
Gene Wilder is as tan as you've ever seen him in this. 2, you can do one of 2 things. If you have a scene where there's a human being talking to a snake.
Yep.
Either it's a snake and you do whatever you need to do to make it seem like the snake is talking to the person.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing that can be done.
Just like voiceover or something.
Some type of animation, whatever. And it's a snake.
What's another way to do it?
Well, you can also abstract it.
Yep.
And have a big dance number and have the snake turn into the human embodiment of a snake and do it in sort of like an imaginative dream sequence, big. If you want to do a big Bob Fosse dance number, you can really abstract it.
Yes.
I'm actually thinking of like the scene in The Producers where he's imagining being the producer, and like all of the showgirls come out of the walls, and like and suddenly they're on a stage and it's like this big number, but it's all happening in his imagination, and then it snaps back to reality, and then you actually see what the reality is.
But you keep it all inside.
So you could do that too, and have Bob Fosse doing his thing, but abstract it.
So can I say, like super quickly, like for example, in the movie, he's in the desert.
Yeah.
There is a tree, and you just snap, and the snake turns into Bob Fosse on the tree in that desert. But if in that moment where the snake turned into Bob Fosse, the desert and the tree also became abstracted.
Right. This is what I'm saying.
That would be totally different.
But what they actually did was sort of in between. And it did not work.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was, and it's the exact same thing they did for The Fox and Gene Wilder, but I think it worked a little better just because Gene Wilder's performance was stronger.
Yep.
But what they did was it's abstracted because it turns from a snake to a person. But literally what you're seeing is Bob Fosse dancing around in the desert, doing a dance like on a cliff by a tree.
Sexily. At a child. That's what happens in this movie. It's terrifying. Yeah. And the only thing I'm happy about, remind me, at the very end when the prince dies.
Yeah.
Because he basically commits suicide because it's the only way he can get back to his home planet.
Suicide by snake.
The snake bites him. But I think in it, Bob Fosse doesn't reappear.
No, I think it's the snake.
I think he was just there for the 2 days that he shot his scene and
yes,
that was it.
I believe so.
Okay. I don't have anything else to say. It's awful.
It's awful. It's awful.
It's the worst thing we've ever seen.
In our lives.
In every single way. Like, yes, the implications of pedophilia are the worst aspect of it. But that's not the only thing.
But it's poorly adapted.
It's very poorly. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea poorly executed.
Yes.
Which is kind of the cardinal sin of adaptations.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the other songs.
Well, let's talk about all the songs.
Let's talk about Richard Kiley.
I just want to run through these.
Yeah.
So it
Real quick.
It is literally the story from the book. It's everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you're writing a musical, I always like the story that Mel Brooks told, which is like when he wrote The Producers, he didn't know when they were supposed to sing and when they were supposed to talk. And his co-writer, Thomas Meehan, who did Annie, basically said, well, it's this idea that when emotion gets so big that the only way it could get out of your characters is through song, that's when they sing.
Right.
Now, this is an example of where it is completely random as to what became a song and what didn't.
Yes. And also the structure, very similar to the claymation, but possibly more acceptable in the claymation because it was only 30 minutes. What is they took the book and they started at the beginning and they went to the end.
Yep.
They did it like page by page and threw in some songs.
Yeah. And I wonder, I can just imagine them sitting there with a copy of the book and a pen or like some Post-it notes and going like reading through in the hour that it takes to read it and going, this could be a song. Oh, this could be a song.
And then just writing all those songs.
Yeah. So here's some of those songs. Okay. It begins when he is a tiny child describing drawing a hat.
Right. I just want to be clear, being the narrator, the aviator.
Yes.
Not the child.
Right.
Yes.
There's this great thing at the beginning of the book for those who've read it where he draws a boa constrictor that's just eaten an elephant. And he draws it from the side in profile. And every time he shows it to an adult, to a grown-up, the grown-up says, oh, it's a hat. So the first song is, do you know the title of the first song?
Isn't it It's a Hat?
No, it's I Need Air, parentheses, it's a hat.
Oh, God.
So it starts out with this little kid going, like, showing all his drawing to all these grown-ups. And that entire first part of it
is the prelude.
It's all in, like, clearly one estate in England.
Yeah.
But his entire childhood life, he's meeting all these different people. It would be great if they could have shot it in a city.
Yeah.
But it's all in one yard, basically.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, all three adaptations start with what is actually the opening moment of the book, which is the elephant inside the snake, the drawing, because the whole thing is about like, oh, a child sees the world differently than adults do.
And when the aviator shows that drawing to the little prince, he goes, I don't need an elephant inside a boa constrictor.
And then the aviator goes, ah!
Oh, goodness. So he's this little kid, and then the little kid grows up super, super fast.
Into Richard Kiley
in an airplane, flying through the skies, singing, I Need Air.
Sometimes upside down.
That Lerner and Lowe have ever done.
It's not good.
This is because the way just so I'm totally clear, Lerner did the screenplay and Lowe did all the songs. And I think that's how they did all their work.
Yeah.
These are, I am imagining, the worst songs that Lowe has ever written, where the chorus is just the refrain over and over and over again.
I need air. I need air. I need air. I need air.
Those are the lyrics of the song.
I just sang the song.
That's it. Then he crashes in the desert. He meets the little prince, and the little prince like runs away from him. And it's this whole thing where he's chasing after the little prince going, I'm on your side.
Yes.
And that's the name of the song. I'm on your side.
My God.
This is where the hints of dangerous I don't want to say the word anymore. Dangerous relationships between adults and tiny children begins.
Yeah, like the child is pursued by adults in a creepy way by at least 3 or 4 different people throughout this movie.
And Richard Kiley starts it
Yes, he does.
with I'm on your side.
Yes.
Do you even remember how this song goes?
Yeah, I mean, I remember him running around in the night in the dunes because this is when I said to you, I'm impressed that he's running and singing at the same time.
Yes, even though he's lip syncing.
Yeah, I understand that, but like he was doing his best.
I mean, literally, you could not afford anyone better than Richard Kiley. Do you know who they really wanted?
No.
Richard Burton.
Oh my God.
Because he was in Camelot.
Yeah.
Can you see him in that?
Yeah, I can see him.
Yeah, but they got Richard
that
Kiley.
same kind of baritone voice.
Exactly. I'm on your side. I can remember every single one of these songs. I can almost remember how they sing the phrase that is the title of the song. But I can't remember anything else from
definitely
it.
remember him singing, Don't You Know That I'm on Your Side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we meet the Rose.
Oh, God.
And the Rose sings a song called Be Happy.
Oh, my God.
I literally can't even remember this song.
No, I just remember her shaking her boobs.
That was it. I think we were both so upset by what was happening that the song we tuned it out.
Yeah.
Then the prince leaves his planet and he goes to the first asteroid where he meets the king, played by Jess Ackland. And he sings a song called You're a Child because Frederick Lowe and Alan Lerner are the most imaginative writers on the planet.
Oh, my God.
It's nothing.
No,
it's a nothing song.
Well, it's one song that continues as he goes to all the different people on the different planets, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
no.
it is.
It's the king and the businessman sing it. But I don't think it's all the planets that he goes to. Like the historian doesn't sing it.
Right.
But the king and the businessman sing it.
Right.
Now I want to take a break from the songs for 1 second, and I want to talk about Stanley Donen, who directed it. He makes some weird choices in this movie about how it's shot.
Yeah.
It's a trippy fucking movie.
Yeah.
So like every single planet they're on, I think I know what they were trying to do. So let me get just nitpicky for a second. So if you shoot
a second, the whole concept of this podcast is us being nitpicky
about movies.
Okay.
So when you're shooting something, when you shoot something with like a super wide angle lens, like a fisheye lens, you know what that looks like, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking you, my co-host.
Yes.
Okay. And for people that I think anyone can kind of imagine when they see something that's shot fisheye, it's like everything in the picture is like bulbous.
Oh,
and
yeah. Like his eye was really big.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he shoots every single asteroid they go to through a fisheye lens.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really extreme and sometimes it's not, but it's always through a fisheye lens. And I think I get what he's doing. I think he's trying to make these like quote unquote planets look as big as possible by making them look small. I'm not sure what he was trying to do. All I know is
Unclear.
that it was a bad idea executed consistently. It was a very consistent bad idea.
Yeah, it's fair.
I think it looks just bad. I don't see the point of it. It makes the whole sequence very, very trippy. And all it does is it gives all of the actors an excuse to get really, really, really close to the lens for a second and then get really, really far away from the lens for a second. They get really, really close.
Yeah.
And so it does nothing for me. So that's just my little thing about kind of the filmmaking of it.
Yeah.
Then there's the pilot has heard the story about the rose, and he sings a song called I Never Met a Rose.
God, I don't even remember that song.
It's like at nighttime and the two of them are sitting next to each other and it's the pilot. It's basically a moment. It's a moment where the prince is not feeling super great about the aviator, but the aviator is like, no, kid, I'm okay. Like, I'm cool. I get what you're saying. And I'm going to talk to you like an adult talks to a child. This is a song where he's humoring him, which is kind of not the point of the story.
No.
I get that it happens. Like the first time he meets the little prince and the little prince says, draw me a sheep. It's a whole scene of him humoring this kid.
Yeah.
And what he discovers early on is that humoring him is not what he should be doing. Because that's how every adult talks to a child, is just humoring them. What you should do is listen to them and talk and actually talk to them. But I Never Met a Rose is just him humoring him.
Yeah.
And so I can't even remember it, and it's
I don't
bad.
really even remember it, so keep going.
Okay. Then there's a song called Why Is the Desert?
I don't
Between
remember that either.
the pilot and the little prince. It's just...
Oh, is that when they're looking for water?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Because there was one about the water.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and they're all like
They're
in
all, like,
the
in-
oasis.
Yeah, because they like dive in the water and it's kind of in slow motion and it's again like
An adult frolicking with a tiny child
In water.
who he's not related to.
yeah.
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 It's problematic.
Yeah.
And I can't remember it. Then we get the greatest song ever written, A Snake in the Grass.
Yes. So the other one definitely is the water because the snake
Yeah.
comes after that.
Right. This is Bob Fosse's
Move on.
And then the best song in the movie, Closer and Closer and Closer, as sung by Gene Wilder.
Again, a song about an adult gradually getting physically closer to a tiny child.
But it works. I think it's the only good song in the movie.
It works okay.
I think it's a good song. I think it's hummable. I actually still remember it.
Well, it was in the trailer.
Right. Oh, and the trailer's weird too.
The trailer's really trippy.
Like the trailer has no footage in it. It's just stills
It's
from the
so
movie
weird.
over this song.
Yeah.
It's very weird. That's, I think, good. And I do think the whole fox scene works the best of any kind of interpretation from the book. If they're going to do it the way they did it, this one works the best, admittedly, even though none of it works that well.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Then we get... Now, I leaned over to
Wait,
you.
no. I want to tell this story. At this point, I'm just going to tell a little story about watching this movie with Jeremy Latour. At this point, clearly the movie was winding down.
Yeah.
He had met the fox. He had met the snake. He had talked to the aviator about how he was going to go to the snake and have the snake transport him back to his own planet, aka kill him. And it was clearly sort of, the music was starting to swell a little bit and it was clearly like winding up for a big final song. And Jeremy turns to me and goes, if that guy starts to sing "Oh Little Prince," I'm fucking done with this. Not 10 seconds later.
Was done, and then your laugh turned on the sun. Oh, little prince, now to my wonder and surprise.
And I just looked at you and I said, did you know that? And you were like, no.
I've never seen this. I don't remember this at all.
Yeah. Like you anticipated, and I don't think like it was that hard to anticipate, but you basically anticipated there's going to be a song with the line, "Oh Little Prince," that's going to be the end of this movie. And indeed there was.
I wish I could be happy about that.
That's just an example of how predictable this movie was. Like, just like the rhymes and the songs and who's singing and what's happening. Like, it's just like you could literally predict the lyrics of the song.
Well, did you know that you don't actually have to work on making a song rhyme if the only lyrics in the song are the title of the song over and over again?
So if you just sing "I need air, I need air, I need air," and you put a guy in an airplane and spin him around so he's upside down, like that's a song apparently.
You just wrote a song. Apparently,
Yay.
apparently you're good enough to write My Fair Lady.
Apparently.
Which is very good. That's the end of it. There's like a finale. It's
bad. It's bad. You shouldn't watch it. We paid $3.99 to watch it, and I'm mad about it.
I'll probably try to link to the Gene Wilder scene and the Bob Fosse scene. I think both those scenes are absolutely worth watching, but for very, very different reasons. I want everyone to share in our pain. This was bad.
Yeah, it was not good.
I know. And when I say it's bad, like I hesitate to say that because it's really important to me that my opinion is just my opinion. My opinion is not fact. So I try to say as much as possible that like I hate something versus it being bad because someone else might love it. This is one of those ones where I am very, very, very comfortable saying it was bad. It's very, very, very bad.
It's the worst thing we've watched for this podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, we actually talked about it, and I think the winner up to this point was the Jim Carrey animated Christmas Carol.
Oh yeah, that didn't do it for us.
This is worse than that.
Yeah, I leaned over to you about 5 minutes into this movie. It was during I Need Air, And I just looked right at you and I was just like, this isn't doing it for me.
No,
I need you to know this is not doing it for me.
And I said the same.
Just in case you thought I was enjoying this.
No.
I am not.
Let's move on.
Let's just wrap this up
Okay.
for this one. Not worth watching. Very problematic. I hate that we talked about pedophilia on this show.
I'm not happy with it. Like, we're never going to do Lolita.
No, I don't want to do Lolita.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Now, I kind of would have thought that the only way you could really make a movie about this, or any adaptation, is do the story. And the story kind of, as we're finding out, kind of defies adaptation, right?
Yeah.
So there's two ways to do it. You either do a short and do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Or do a feature and do the whole thing and add bullshit.
Yes.
Or do a completely different story that shows all the things that happen in The Little Prince and includes The Little Prince as a book, but is a story about new characters.
I mean, I guess I would just say add a new framing device.
This I think goes beyond a framing device.
That's fair.
I actually think The Little Prince is the framing device for the story that they told.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. I'm going to amend that. Make it a framing device.
Yes. Add the concept of a framing device.
Yes.
So, as we're saying, the movie is very, very different from the book. Do you want to kind of give everybody a sense of what is the story that they've created that they've dropped the Little Prince into?
Yeah. So we have a story about a little girl who never actually is named. She's just called the little girl and her mother. And clearly, the dad is out of the picture. There's like one line at some point in the movie that indicates like the dad left them.
Yeah, he's not dead.
He left.
He left. Yeah.
And the girl's mother is very successful and very driven, very intense, very intelligent. And she wants the little girl to apply to this wonderful private school called Worth Academy. And she screws up her interview. And so the whole motto of Worth Academy is they take the motto from The Little Prince, what is essential is invisible to the eye, and they keep talking about being essential. That comes up again and again throughout this whole movie. And they move houses so that she can go to this academy even after she flips her interview. And the mom sets up this very extremely structured plan for the little girl for the rest of her life, to learn all the things she needs to learn and do all the things she needs to do so that she can be successful. And basically what happens is she sits down to begin this life plan. And as she does so, a propeller from next door, there's like a very like dilapidated house next door. A propeller flies through the window and crashes and ruins their house. And it turns out that there's this old man living next door that keeps trying to start his plane in the backyard. And at first, the young girl is very suspicious of him. He's very weird. He's very strange. And then
very old with a great big bushy beard.
Great big bushy beard. He's Jeff Bridges doing his old man voice. Mm-hmm. And then they become really close, and he tells her the story of the Little Prince. Basically, he's the aviator, and he encountered the Little Prince. So he tells her throughout the movie, he tells her the story of his experience. And the part where they're the Little Prince, so this is all like computer animation, but the part where they're talking about the Little Prince is like a totally different kind of animation.
It's all stop motion.
It's all stop motion. It's really visually very interesting. And so they get very, very close, and she learns all about the Little Prince, and she starts to learn that there's kind of more to life than just this very like rigid structure and being very sensible and dependable. Basically, the old man dies.
He doesn't die.
Well,
he goes to the hospital. He's dying.
He knows he's dying, and he starts to talk about what's going to happen to her when he dies, and she's very upset. And he goes to the hospital, and she is able to actually fly his airplane into Little Prince world and find, because they keep talking about how the Little Prince went back to his planet, and she keeps saying, but you don't know that. I think he died. And he's like, no, he didn't die. He went back to his planet. And so she finds the Little Prince as an adult working for the businessman, and he's very unhappy because he's basically, his talents aren't being utilized properly, and he can't fit into the society. He's living in this very like oppressive
Mr. Prince?
Mr. Prince.
Well, he also has completely forgotten the fact that he was the Little Prince.
Right, but like he doesn't understand why he can't fit in, basically.
Yeah.
That was what it was, right? Because that was the thing that I related to, right? Like he was basically trying to be a square peg in a round hole.
Well, you've got two characters where you have a child who has you have a child who was forced into being a grown-up too fast.
Yeah.
And kind of doesn't know what it is to be a child. And you have another child who was forced to become a grown-up too fast, literally.
Yeah.
He was the little prince, and now he's Mr. Prince,
Yeah.
voiced by Paul Rudd.
There it is.
And he has completely forgotten what it is to be a child.
Right.
So the movie is like thematically about childhood.
Yes.
It's about embracing those parts of you that harken back to childhood.
So basically, they defeat the businessman and save the day, and she takes him back to his planet, and he sees his rose again, and he's happy, and then she goes home.
he turns back into the little prince.
He turns back into the little prince, and everything's great. And then she goes home and finds the old man in time before he dies, basically, and reconciles with her mother, and everybody's fine. And that's the end.
That is the story.
Yes.
This is, I think, kind of like, I don't know that this episode was ever going to be set up for us both to have the same reactions to everything.
Yeah.
And not every episode is going to be like that. I love this book so much, and I have a really deep emotional reaction to it. I fucking love this movie.
It's really good.
So much.
I really enjoyed it.
I cried the whole time.
I can't think of any other adaptation of anything that has been done in this manner that like took such liberty and added like a brand new story and worked so well.
Yeah. I think it comes from, we do our quadrants, and we say one of the aspects of the quadrants is, did they love the source material?
Yeah.
This is one of those ones where, like, I don't think I've ever seen creators of a new piece of art get the original source material better than in this example.
Yeah, and that's why it works so well, because the moral of the story is infused throughout the sort of, not really even the framing device, but the main story.
Yeah.
They keep, like, the word essential is everywhere. And if you didn't know the story of the Little Prince, you wouldn't necessarily even pick up on that. But it's there.
Yeah.
Like,
For anyone, I think for anyone who loves the book, watching this movie is really, really special, because constantly throughout the entire movie, they're referencing the book.
yeah.
And it's not just a character from the book saying a line they have from the book. It's not that kind of reference. It's thematic references.
Yes.
Constantly.
Yes. I mean, in contrast, I won't say what it was, but we watched something last night that I was getting really mad because it was like
we watched for the show.
That we watched for the show because it was like they had taken the greatest hits of quotes from the original material and just like made kind of a pool of them for the script writer to just pull out. And so like the character was saying basically just the greatest hits of that character, but like completely out of context. And it was like, oh, that quote's from the book. But that doesn't make sense. And that character would never say that in that situation. This was like the opposite of that. It was like there was so little of the actual source material, the actual word for word source material, but so much of like the heart and the moral of the story.
Even though, like, in all honesty, they show the whole source material.
That's true. It's just very short.
Like, you could make a version of this that's just the Little Prince.
Yeah, you totally could.
And take out everything about the little girl and her mother.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see that version of it.
No.
Some things I found out about, like, who made it. So it was directed by a guy named Mark Osborne. He did this. I love, because I didn't know about this until I did the research. He directed the claymation Jurassic Park video for Weird Al Yankovic.
Okay.
Did you ever see it?
No.
For the song Jurassic Park?
I didn't see it.
Okay, he directed that, which is great. He was,
but like I know those are like your two favorite things.
Yep.
So that is probably really exciting.
I want
to
sit down and talk to Mark Osborne. He was heavily involved in SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay.
And directed the movie and directed a lot of the episodes of the show. He directed Kung Fu Panda,
Okay.
which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, we've seen it.
It's such a good movie.
It's good.
And he also is attached to. He's the director for Bone.
Oh.
For anyone who doesn't know, Bone is a black and white comic series. Like it's like a series with a beginning and a middle and an end.
Yeah.
And you can go to any bookstore and buy like the whole thing.
Comics.
Bone is amazing. It's one of the best things I've ever read.
Bone was, I think, when we were dating, I think it was the first thing that you ever sat me down and said, if you're going to date me, you're going to know what this is. Like, I think it was the first thing you ever made me like read or see.
It's like, if I had to make a top 5 of my favorite things ever,
yeah,
Bone is one of them.
Yeah. And Buffy is the other one. And you made me watch that too.
Yeah. And I think you liked Buffy more than Bone.
I definitely like Buffy more than Bone.
Yeah. Bone's got a lot of fantasy stuff in it. I honestly, at this point, I can't think of few people I would trust more to do that than him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited about that. But he directed this movie, but he also wrote it, and the idea was his. The idea of using the Little Prince as a framing device for another character's story, who is a little girl.
Yeah.
this was important to him because he's the type of person, we were just talking about this yesterday, that like there's this idea of being woke, and how I'm hearing people say things like, well, woke is not a good term for it because that implies you're done.
Yeah.
But waking
Yeah.
is a different thing. And I like any creator that recognizes something that they are not required to recognize, but after recognizing it, realizes that they need to change what they make.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking in an interview about like a study that came out about the fact that like just how many animated movies don't have a female main character.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, that has to change. And I'm going to start with this. So I'm going to make my story about a little girl and her mom,
mm-hmm.
because there's absolutely, like, not only is there no reason that these characters have to be male, it is more important that they're female.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
And I just really like that.
Yeah. I think it's great.
I like that this is a story. It is the Little Prince, but it's not his story. It's her story.
Well, right. And I'm like, I actually think it's better storytelling, because if the character had been a boy, then I think it would be confusing. It would be like, wait, is he the Little Prince?
Yeah.
Or is the character in the flashback the Little Prince? Just by making it a girl, it's like, oh no, it's clear. This is a different story.
Yeah. And so the story, the central relationship of the story between the girl and her mother is just a story of two strong female characters.
I love her mother. Her mother, I see myself in her mother.
Like, her mother is a flawed character.
Yeah.
Who is wonderful.
But she wears a tie.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yep. She's great. This is a great movie. And anyone who has Netflix can watch it. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like every other thing we've ever talked about, we say, like, go rent it or go do this. I'm sure everyone has a Netflix account.
I'm so mad that we had to pay $3.99 to watch that musical.
But everyone can watch this one.
This was free.
So Mark Osborne came up with the idea for it. The way he pitched it sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you bought me, when you were in Paris last year,
A pop-up book.
a pop-up book of The Little Prince.
I bought it from a street vendor.
He basically...
Who cheated me.
I mean, yes, maybe you paid more for it than you needed to.
I think I paid more for it than I needed to, but I did haggle with him in French.
Yeah.
So I was really proud of myself. And he was probably like, oh my God, she thinks she's so smart.
But in French.
Got 10 times as much as I otherwise would have.
But all of that was in French.
But all in French.
He basically had a suitcase made, and when he opened it up, it was a prop, essentially, that was full of illustrations and pop-up materials visualizing the entire movie.
This was like his pitch?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He said he pitched it over 400 times.
Oh my God.
Like, just to different studios and different producers and all the actors who were involved in it. And he had this, like, pitch that he would do where he opens up this magic suitcase and shows them the story that he wants to tell. And the first actor he got was Jeff Bridges.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Now, I am going to say something that I feel very strongly about. This movie, in my mind, completely undoes the damage done
To the Giver?
to The Giver. We haven't talked about this, but Jeff Bridges was involved in the adaptation of another children's book that didn't go well. It wasn't his fault.
Well, we have talked about it. We have a whole episode about it.
No, I mean, you and I haven't talked about the fact that I think this makes him square with us
All
for
right.
it.
That's fair.
I
mean, he's also the dude. He's always square with me.
No, I love Jeff Bridges. He's great. But they have a really, really good cast. Do you know who does the voice of the Little Prince?
Yeah, Paul Rudd.
No, the Little Prince.
Oh,
not Mr. Prince.
I don't know.
It's the director's son.
Oh, that's sweet.
Riley Osborne.
Aw.
And his daughter played the girl.
Yeah.
But she got too old and her voice changed,
Oh,
so they had
no.
to get an actress for her. So Mackenzie Foy, who was like the little baby in Twilight.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah, but that's
The
fine.
one that gets ripped out of her belly?
Yeah.
Gross.
Renesmee or something like that.
Renesmee? Yeah. Let's not talk about Twilight.
Rachel McAdams is the mom. Marion Cotillard is the Rose.
Yes.
Both in English and French.
I want to be clear. The rose is not sexy. The rose is just a rose.
The Rose is a Rose, voiced by Marion Cotillard, who is very sexy.
But the rose is a rose.
Right. And one thing I should say about this movie is that this is a French movie.
Yes.
Like, this was financed, created. It was, they financed the whole thing and produced it in France, but then it was actually, like, animated in Montreal.
All the on-screen text is French.
Yep.
So, like, when they're looking at the pages, so basically the old man, the aviator, has written and drawn out the story of the Little Prince, and when she's reading the pages of text, it's all actually in French. Like, when you look at it.
Yeah, and like her textbooks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's a whole other French cast, but my understanding is Marion Cotillard was the Rose in French as well.
That's nice.
Which I think makes sense. There's one bit of casting in it that I did not like.
Okay.
At all. James Franco plays the fox.
I don't like James Franco.
I don't like him at all. I think as a creative person, as someone involved in things that I watch, I think he's fine. I think he's completely inappropriate to play this character.
Yeah.
I think he's not a good enough actor to give the gravitas to these lines that they need.
I mean, Gene Wilder, James Franco.
Oh my God, there's no there's so many actors I could think of who would be better at it at this character than him.
Yeah.
But it's James Franco. Benicio del Toro plays the snake.
It's fine.
That's perfect.
That's great.
That's great.
And he doesn't swing his crotch at anybody.
No, he doesn't even have a crotch.
Because he's a snake.
He's a snake the whole time.
It's great. He just continues to be a snake.
Just a snake. Albert Brooks is the businessman. Paul Giamatti's the head of Worth Academy.
That's good.
Which is neat. There's one actor in it that I know you did not appreciate the casting of.
Nope.
So there's the conceited man.
Yeah.
On one of the asteroids. Who voices him?
Excellent casting. You know, if you're just typecasting, excellent casting, because they picked the most conceited man who thinks he's the smartest man in the world to play a character of the most conceited man who thinks he's the smartest man in the world, and that's Ricky Gervais.
Mm-hmm.
He's awful. I'm so angry that he exists, and he's in this movie. That's the end.
Oh, okay.
That's the end of my feeling.
I was excited to kind of let you go on that one. I think the cast is really good in this movie. The story is really, really good. I love the framing device. The only thing that I would probably say is like a knock against this movie is that as an animated movie in 2015, it is a little derivative of a number of other specific recent animated movies. So, for example, have you seen The Incredibles?
Yes.
Do you remember when Bob works in an office and drives home in his little car and lives in a normal little neighborhood?
Yeah.
And how everything is drab and gray and boxy and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the world they live in. And
yes. Yeah. I don't know that it's directly derivative.
There's a lot of things in this movie that I think I can kind of pull from recent, specifically Pixar movies.
Okay.
I wanted to say it. Like, it was important to me to acknowledge it, but the movie succeeds so well based on kind of the emotional core of the story.
The old man is so sweet and so good and so funny. Like when the police officer's knocking on it, the character of the police officer is amazing too, by the way. And then when the police officer's like knocking on his door and the old man just like holds out his hands for the cops and says, "Downtown?" This
is after the propeller has gone through the house next door.
I believe I've caused extensive damage to the house next door.
It's really, really good.
It's really funny.
And like at no point, because the entire movie is based on an adult character forging a relationship with a tiny child.
Yes.
But
it's not creepy. Somehow they managed to make it not creepy.
It's because they're good writers.
Yeah.
Mark Osborne's a good writer.
Yeah.
It's so pure.
Yeah.
Like we're going to do our quadrants here in a moment for these, but like I think this is the most anyone has ever cared about the source material.
Yeah.
Who has made something new.
I mean, I'm not willing to put like that strong of a statement on it, but it's pretty good.
Let me put it this way. I think this is the most interesting interpretation I think we've watched for the show, for me, that is born out of a love of the source material. Because I feel like the other times that we've seen things where it's so clear that they love it, they because stuck really closely it's so
to it.
Faithful.
Because I'm thinking of like Little Women.
Right.
You know, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Like that doesn't change anything the way this does.
Yeah.
No,
actually,
yeah.
I think it does because they made it about the author's family rather than about the book that she wrote. And they did that out of love for the source material.
Yeah, totally.
But that is a movie that people adore. If we're putting The Little Prince on a par with the Gillian Armstrong version of Little Women, like that is a high bar because that is a fabulous movie that people love.
I'm willing to put this up there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I loved it.
Totally.
Do you want to do some quadrants and then wrap this up?
Let's do it.
Great. So let's go. Let's trek back.
All the way back.
All the way back.
It was so far
to the
away.
Will Vinton animated short film, The Little Prince.
1979.
Do you think he cared about the source material?
No.
I want to kind of preface this for a second. If we're asking the question, do they care about the source material?
Uh-huh.
This is one of the most beloved books on the planet.
Yes.
So I think anyone who makes it at least likes the source material. What I'm saying is, do they deeply care about it?
Yeah, I feel like that's what we're usually asking, but I think it's reasonable to clarify.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify for this one.
I think that's fine.
So with that framing of it, through that lens,
yes,
Do we think that Will Vinton like deeply cared about The Little Prince?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I really don't.
I think he had a lot of respect for it. And I think he had a lot of respect to kind of do the story.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he responded to parts of it, but I don't get the sense that he like...
I don't think that
Yeah.
the fact that this exists was born out of his love for The Little Prince. It was born out of, I do this weird claymation thing. What would work with that?
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Was it good?
It was all right.
I think it was good. I'm
it's
gonna go
on the
ahead.
line for me.
I can't accept this being a lower left
No,
piece.
no. No, I'm saying it's on the line.
Yeah. But it was good.
Yeah.
I think it's good for what it is.
Yeah.
1974. Do we think that they cared about the source material?
Honestly, they might have.
Maybe.
I think they might have.
Ah.
I think it's hard to tell, but I'm not willing to say that they didn't.
Okay.
Just based on what we saw in front of us.
Okay. Well, luckily,
Because you know why? Because I don't feel like it was cynical. Like I felt like they were wholehearted about it. They just did a bad job.
yeah, I think they were kind of doing their thing though.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of their stuff is kind of defined by not being super cynical.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them were stretching themselves.
No.
I don't think they worked very hard on this at all.
Okay. That's fair.
But okay, I'll accept that they cared about it.
Let's put it on the line.
Okay. Was it good?
No, God, it was awful.
Maybe the worst thing we've ever watched for this show. Oh my goodness. 2015.
Yes.
Did they care about the source material?
I think we're agreeing that they did.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good.
This is like one of my favorite adaptations we've looked at.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
It's great.
And it makes me cry constantly.
Yes.
Because it's beautiful.
I
and
did
it's
not
wonderful.
shed a single tear.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know. It
That's
just
okay.
didn't hit me where I live the way it did you.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
So this was fun. I was really excited to do this episode.
Yeah, this is great. This is a good way to kind of like ease ourselves back into just like full disclosure. We have been gone a long time. We have not recorded in some time.
And it's been really fun for the last couple of weeks we were in Paris.
We were in Paris.
And every time I saw anything that was The Little Prince, it
which was
like,
a lot, like
yeah.
to be clear.
Of course. I was like, we're going to record this when we get back.
Yeah.
I'm excited about
and like
it.
it was good because it was a short book and it was only a couple movies to watch, so it was good. So we will get into some heavier stuff, I think, going forward. But welcome back.
It's nice to be back.
It's good to be back.
Well, this has been another episode of Adapt or Perish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the hashtag AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. Like I said before, we really like getting email. If you'd like to support the show, there are two great ways you can do it. First, as always, tell a friend. We don't do advertising or anything, so word of mouth is how we're growing this show. We have loved hearing from all of the new listeners that we've been getting. It's been really, really special. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated.
Well, but also, the important thing is that what is essential is invisible to the eye.
Well, I've never seen any of our listeners, so they are invisible to my eye.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.